you ever look at someone and wonder what is going on inside their head?
Real ass bitch, give a fuck about a nigga. Big Birkin bag, hold 5-6 figures. Damn!
Turn off that light!
Good morning, good evening, good day to everyone that's watching. Thank you for tuning in to the World of Jalon. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome, welcome, welcome. If you are a returning member of the church, welcome back. You all can please take your shoes off because I don't know where the you been. This channel is basically used to do and discuss anything that I want to at that time. And today's discussion is going to be on the state of Black pop stars and why there seems to be a decline of Black artists within the popular music realm. This conversation is really for me to just go ahead and express all the things that I feel like play into the lack of visibility of Black artists that I feel like are not being addressed whenever y'all bring this conversation up of where are Black pop stars, where are the Black pop stars every 2 weeks. And for the sake of just wanting to relieve myself from stress and not reply to all those dumb tweets that y'all be sending out, we're just gonna do it all in one video so I can just be one and done. If you're not already subscribed to the channel or even following any of my socials, I really encourage y'all to do so because I be having a good time and I want to bring y'all along with me. So join in on the fun, join in on the World of Jalon. You know you want to, duh. But with all that out the way, let's just go ahead and get into the video. So again, I can be done with this conversation once and for all. Oh, Jesus. Now, historically, Black artists have always been the pinnacle of excellence within mainstream music and have always set the standard for what it meant to be an influential artist within popular music. Despite the social and political optics set against Black people in society in general, but even within the music industry, there have been plenty of Black artists throughout music history that have not only defied the odds and obtained success, but have been set as a definition of what it means to be a pop star. And for the sake of definition and getting this out the way, a pop star is literally a popular artist who is able to obtain success within the commercial music realm, i.e. being played on the radio, getting a bunch of streams, being at award shows, popular award shows. All of that is what it means to be a pop star within the music industry. So let this be a set definition for what it is that we're going to be talking about. It's needless to say that the world of music that we're witnessing now is not the same that it was 30, 20, or even 10 years ago. And the world of music that we are witnessing is not the same world of music that the notable Black artists of the past were in. And one of the changes that is being witnessed and is constantly being questioned, at least on social media, is where are the Black pop stars? I typically see this question being brought up whenever there's a new white girl coming out of nowhere with music or like growing in popularity, and there are a host of different tweets talking about some where are the Black people that's making music like this, or where are the Black pop stars that are gaining traction, like where are they? And maybe that serves as a problem itself as to why y'all are only asking or checking in for Black artists whenever a white person is doing something or growing in popularity, but maybe that'll be addressed later on. We're gonna get into that right now. But regardless of when and how the questions are being asked, I think it is a fair assessment to notice the visibility of Black artists changing and how we're seeing less and less of popular Black artists within the same spaces of these white artists who are again coming out of nowhere and getting all this traction. And again, the visibility of Black artists is not the same as it was for the music industry when Michael Jackson, Janet Jackson, Whitney, and even early Beyonce were in it. And I think one of the things to note when it comes to the discussion of the lack of visibility of Black artists today is the changing music industry and how the industry has shifted greatly within the last 10 to 15 years especially, and is still actively doing so. The popular Black music artists of the past had full machines backing them that catapulted them to success. From label promotion to exquisite marketing to good management teams, there were so many things that went into play that made the Black artists that we know and love and reference today who they were. And the industry, simply put, is really not doing the same things that they used to do when it comes to putting these artists on the pedestal of being promoted properly. In the past, where artists had things like commercials and televised interviews and performances where they were constantly on the go promoting their upcoming album or single in their audience's face all the time, we are now in a world where social media takes that place of music promotion. And the thing about social media, we curated our own. Television is a program that's given to us and something that we have to witness without altering it for ourselves. Social media is the exact opposite of it. We can alter it ourselves and we can filter what it is that we want to see and things that may be attracting to us based on what we give it. And if your favorite artist is not already within your algorithm, chances are you're not going to be seeing what they're doing all the time, especially when it comes to their upcoming music. And versus the past, where labels will be taking advantage of promoting their artists by booking the interview, by making the commercial, by booking the performance, artists are pretty much doing this on their own, taking it in their own hands by promoting their own music on social media without much backing except for the followers that they already have. And we can also take into account the impact of streaming. Now, I am not in the music industry at all, have no interest for real, so this is like outside opinion. But I am certain that streaming has definitely impacted the way that revenue has came in for artists and for these labels. I know for a fact these labels are not making that much money off of streaming in the way that they once were with physical copy music. And if they are, somebody's stealing. Meaning that these labels are not getting the revenue that they need to promote these artists in the way that they used to, leaving the artists to be self-sufficient and doing the shit on their own. And this plays right into the creation and the rise of independent artists, where artists are either leaving labels or not being signed by labels at all and doing all the means of music promotion for themselves with their own funding. And while it's wonderful to be able to have the creative freedom to promote the music the way that you see fit, there is still a benefit of being connected with a label, such as having a budget outside of your own to promote your music and have the sufficient funding to continue on doing so without dipping into your own bank. And let's not sidetrack the fact that these labels are racist. These labels operate under the same white supremacist structure as any other industry. So it's very possible that these labels aren't interested in promoting Black artists at all. But again, I am not part of the music industry. So my insight as to the dynamics of the music industry with these artists is very limited. However, I am part of the general public of music consumers. And I see a lot of things going on within the general public when it comes to music consumption and interacting with these Black artists that aids into the problem of why there are a lack of Black artists, apparently to y'all. One of the things I like to note when it comes to how the general public interacts with artists is something I just call commercial consequences, which is basically the rise of criticisms and different opinions when it comes to artists and their music as a result of them just gaining popularity and being exposed to different audiences. And while it's obviously beneficial to be growing in popularity as an artist, it does come at the expense of your art being faced with high criticism and backlash, or you as an artist being faced with that high criticism and backlash when people are just not really feeling what it is that you're doing. And obviously for Black artists, the optics have always been deeper than just the music not being liked or for certain audiences and groups to not connect with the music that Black artists are making. While we do live in an ever-changing music world, one thing that has remained the same is that Black artists have always been required to fulfill ever-changing expectations with little to no grace. We can take into account things like audiences dismissing Black artists whenever their body of work is not charting, or audiences misinterpreting Black art and Black branding on purpose, or people just having internalized hatred for Black people and Black artists and Black expression, regardless of the music genre. And the social optics of colorism, featureism, texturism, homophobia, sexism, and all the other isms that plague our lives don't just go away for Black artists in the music industry. As a matter of fact, many times they're exacerbated because it's bigger audiences partaking in the tearing down of Black artists through those many isms that they have to face anyway just for being Black. And even in situations where Black artists are able to amass major success, there are individuals and groups who believe that Black artists don't deserve it or the success is inauthentic and it's just manufactured. People being bullied for their success, being called things like industry plants and other buzzwords that y'all figure out on social media and don't really actually know definitions of, and just want to say it to just tear artists down. But all these things come with the experience of being a visibly Black artist and growing in popularity within the music world. But that's not the only reason at play when it comes to the lack of visibility of Black pop stars. One of the more interesting perspectives to look at is the fact that the method they used to make Black pop stars in the past versus how Black pop stars are made today are not the same due to the changing social perspectives of exploitation, especially for young artists. I actually saw a TikTok the other day explaining how artists today are not going to have the same appeal and like mass success as artists of the past because the things that made artists of the past were not only extremely exploitative, but these artists were literally molded and built into being artists and entertainers. Like, there was no other option for them because that's what they knew as children. She delved into a little bit more. I'm gonna put the video in here.
Gen Z is never going to have a Britney Spears, a Michael Jackson, an NSYNC, a Backstreet Boys, a Beyonce, because what it takes to make that level of pop star is unethical. Those pop icons were quite literally like created. Like they started as like children. Like, think of Michael Jackson. He started his career as an actual like baby, okay? And he was formed into the artist that he became. Same with Britney Spears, same with the Backstreet Boys, same with NSYNC, same with Beyonce. Like, these artists were made literally like giving Powerpuff Girls, like made in a lab.
But I think this point is interesting to bring up because you see how human like development is being manipulated for these children in order to make them into the artists that they were when they were younger and are now. We can see this with the examples of the 90s teen R&B stars, Usher, Aaliyah, Brandy, Monica, Maya, all artists who entered the industry at the age of 18 and younger and were molded into the artists that they were and still are. And some of them having to experience very horrendous situations, like Usher, who was trained and molded by that man that shall not be named, and having to experience probably a lot of sexual exploitation at his very young age. You have people like Aaliyah, who we already know her situation and these amounts of that she faced, not only at the hands of one man, but by an entire group of people that did not protect her from the abuse that she faced, but still catered to molding her into the artist that she was. And so we see the dynamics of making these black artists that we know and love and have been the pinnacle of black pop stardom, dealing with a lot of psychological conditioning, adultification, physical tormenting, and even grooming. And so when we see artists of today who are coming into the music industry or gaining popularity later on in life when they're older and able to make their own decisions, when comparing them to artists of the past, what seems as much as like less effort being done on the new artists is really just them not being exploited or being molded into the artists that we want them to be, versus the artists of the past who were basically shaped from very young ages into being entertainers and truthfully nothing else. And since I know a lot of y'all have adopted artist development into y'all buzzword dictionary, I think it's important to know how these artists are being made when y'all are making comparisons from the newer artists of today to the artists of the past and the artists that we define as the pinnacle of black pop stardom. Hey, so it's the next day and I had to record this portion of the video because there's some footage that wanted to get lost. Where the camera? I hate you. I hate you. But needless to say that exploitation has been part of the training and shaping of black artists of the past, and that's probably not being done in the same way that it is for new artists. So let's keep that in mind when it comes to why these artists are not gaining the attraction and appeal that y'all feel like they should be having when comparing them to older artists. But delving further into a deeper point that I feel like it's not being addressed enough when it comes to how black artists have been impacted within the last 10 to 15 years in the music industry, and that is the time period of the recession pop era. Recession pop, semi by definition, is the explosion of up-tempo, fun dance pop music into the commercial sphere that was ushered in around the Great Recession time, so like 2007 and like that later half of the 2000s. This era of music was also kind of defined as like the feel-good music era, where the music was basically used to kind of emotionally disconnect the audience from the socioeconomic hardships that were going on during that time in the Western world, or at least in just the United States. Now, don't get me wrong, this is my favorite era of white girl pop music. Like, it did exactly what it was supposed to do. But I feel like it's not really taken into account when it comes to how R&B music really suffered post like 2000s, late 2000s, and how many black artists were not gaining the same traction or success that they once were because of this new wave of feel-good pop music. Before the recession pop era, black artists, especially in the 90s and early half of the 2000s, were gaining the traction while making R&B and hip-hop and other types of music. And they were on the same level of success as their white counterparts. But due to this mass ushering in of a whole bunch of white women singing feel-good, up-tempo music, it came at the expense of a lot of black artists, especially within the R&B realm, not gaining the same success that they once had. And it came also at the expense of many black artists who were still doing R&B during that time, not gaining the mass commercial success, or a lot of artists trying to make that pop transition and not really being successful at it. And through that, you only had a handful of black artists who were able to make that transition into up-tempo popular music successfully, and R&B really not getting the same level of commercial success that it once had, really up until recently, with the newer R&B artists that are gaining the success that they are doing right now. But again, it's really still not on the same level as it once was within, again, the 90s and early 2000s. And I think in discussing how recession pop was about emotional and social disconnection through music, it makes ways for another movement to come into play. And y'all are going to hate me for bringing it up, but it's part of why we don't have a lot of black pop stars right now, and that is anti-intellectualism.
What?
Oh my God, bro.
Now, I understand that anti-intellectualism is part of a mass social sphere right now, and it's probably going to be another buzzword that people are going to use for no reason out of nowhere. But I think there is a lot of truth in the fact that there is a very big disconnect emotionally and socially when it comes to how audiences engage with black music and black artists. I think this comes into play perfectly when it comes to monolithic thinking, where people have this fixed idea on what makes a black artist a pop star, or questioning, can black artists be pop stars in the first place? You have people who have this fixed idea that people who make R&B or hip hop or other types of music aren't able to be pop stars, even though by definition, being a pop star just means that you are a popular artist. And we have popular hip hop artists, popular R&B artists, and popular artists of other genres. So why is it that we can't consider them pop stars? And then you have other people who are saying that people who have been placed as pop stars in the pinnacle of a pop star, they are not pop stars at all for some reason. Or we can even delve into the realm of how commercial black art in today's world is constantly being sonically or lyrically dumbed down for the sake of commercial success or for pacifying audiences. Black art is inherently complex within the popular culture sphere because of how race relations and other intersecting identities play into our lived experience and how we express our art. And those things are often ignored within the popular culture and in society at large when it comes to how other communities interact with us and our art. So with the dumbing down of black art sonically and lyrically, it not only makes it accessible for non-black audiences to listen to it without engaging with it critically, but it makes it possible for the non-black audiences to be a part of the art form with little to no respect or knowledge of the foundational intersecting political and social factors that went into making black art in the first place. We can even take SZA as an example. SZA has been able to garner so much success while still being labeled as an R&B artist, and that in itself has been a rarity within today's time. But there's no doubt that she had to make some changes to her sound, especially from what she used to make back in like way before Control, in order to gain that commercial success. Because what she was making with her EPs like S and Z, that was not going to give her the massive success that she is right now, because sonically that is not palatable for a lot of audiences. And it's not to say that she's not good or the music that she was making was not good before Control, but it says a lot about how we consume art and consume black art by anybody within the popular music realm. And getting into my next point, with black art being dumbed down for the sake of commercial accessibility and then having non-black audiences engage with that art in that way, it makes it easier for non-black listeners and non-black artists to come into the black music space, colonizing it, and then gaining traction and popularity off of the backs of the black art that they're using. Historically, sounds that have been made by black artists have either been reframed with white artists, making them the notable figures of the genre even to this day, or they have been watered down in order to fit white artists and to be palatable for white audiences. We can literally look at any genre that has been made within America, and that has been the case, again, historically. And I know this is probably a little bit violent to say, but I don't really care. With the colonization of black music, it has not only made it harder for the black origin stories of those genres to be preserved, but it has made it harder for black artists today to thrive within said genres. Again, those being anything that you could pick of when looking at American music. Rock, country, dance, it doesn't matter. Black artists have a hard time thriving in some of these genres today, despite their origins being Black themselves. And on the flip side, as music consumers, we have been impacted by the colonization of Black music by being told that a lot of these genres are for and made by white people, and any Black person that's trying to step foot in those genres or not making music that is for Black people are just trying to appeal to white people. With the greatest example happening of this, to me, being in the 80s with Whitney Houston. The way Whitney Houston was ridiculed by the Black community for the music that she was making and saying that she was just trying to appeal to white people, was that not crazy? I think it was. And maybe this delves into my next point, which is how we as the general public of music consumers are really consuming the music that we're interacting with today in the first place. On top of there being a fixed social limit as to what makes Black music, we as the general public have a very non-intimate and inactive way of engaging with the music that we're listening to and the artists that are making that music. Things such as streaming and excessive social media use has turned music consumption into this fast-paced culture of virality and social acceptance. And a lot of times this can prevent us from intimately engaging with the music that we're listening to and feeling a connection with the artists that are making that music. And then with the accessibility of streaming and making that so easy to just consume music, there's things like not buying music and not buying merchandise or not listening to music all the way through or not listening to albums all the way through, makes it hard for that connection for music to be made. And so when you have on one side Black art and Black identity being inherently complex in creation in the first place, and then you have music consumption not being intimately engaged with, of course there's going to be a disconnect between the Black artists that we have and who we are as audience members, and the fact that that disconnect is aiding into the fact that these people can't be popular when we can't intimately engage with the music that they're making for us as an audience. And to address my last point, I believe that many of you all believe that amassing a big white audience is the only means, or really the biggest means, of making a pop star. Many people have set white approval as the means of how to gain mainstream success. And I think that can even go back to my original point in this video of why y'all only bring up the conversation of where are the Black pop stars when y'all see white people gaining traction, because y'all see white success as the means of being successful. That is the only way that you can be successful, and how they do it is the way that we should be doing it. Despite Black pop stars being the pinnacle of what it means to be a pop star in the first place, the king of pop is literally a Black man. So how is it that we only see the examples of what it means to be a pop star by these white people that, again, come out of nowhere and just gain popularity for the sake of them just making music and being white at the same time? But with all of this, what am I actually saying? What am I actually trying to get at? I need y'all to open y'all minds and eyes. Black artists should not be deemed as disposable if they're not able to garner mass popularity. And when they are able to get that popularity, it should not always be a question of, well, why are they popular? Especially when y'all are not able to critically engage, or maybe they don't even want to critically engage with the music that they are making. If you actually want Black pop stars to be on the rise, look at the Black artists in your face. Listen to their music, support them, engage with them, and allow them to be the artists that they want to be, and not the artists that you think that they should be in order to gain popularity. Because with all the optics that Black artists have to go through, that I probably did into everything within this one video, the last thing that they need is for audiences, especially audiences that look like them, to be their worst enemy. And the last thing that we need is for us to be the reason why we are not in mainstream music. So yeah, that's all I want to address. I am not going to engage in this conversation anymore on social media. All posts, all tweets relating to anything dealing with this will be blocked indefinitely. I can't do it anymore, because it just, if you're going to be one-dimensional when it comes to conversation like this, then that's probably not a conversation that you should be having in the first place. Therefore, let this be a reference point for anybody that wants to continue on having that conversation but not think. Okay, all right. So yeah, I think that's everything that I want to talk about. If you're still here, thank you for watching. I appreciate it. And tune in for the next video. Thank you.